points, they figure no one's interested.
Okay.
Let it be points. Okay.
Good evening, folks. I think we'll have a very interesting talk tonight by Clive. Clive has been a member or a frequent attendee at our meetings since, I think, last April and so on. And we're very glad to have him. His talk is about Caribbean secular identities. And I think that it's a subject we don't hear much about. So I think that we'll be kind of pleased to hear what is happening in the Caribbean, and maybe we learn quite a bit. Clive has a degree in linguistics from the University of the West Indies in, what's the name of that place?
Jamaica.
Yeah, I know Jamaica, but I was looking for the name of that town.
Campus, Mona.
Mona. In Mona in Jamaica, and he teaches at York University, and he has both a blog and a video podcast that I sent links to on the announcement. And I think that he might tell us a bit more about that, because I think that we'd be all be interested in knowing not only about what he tells us about what happens in Caribbean, but also about himself. So come on, Clive, and I think that I'm going to give you the first one.
Is this good?
Yeah, you can even come on the light. Yeah. No.
Okay. Is it too bad?
No, this side.
No. No, there's a shade there. Come a bit in. Use that. Okay, fine. Can you talk like this without the light bothering you?
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go this way. Yeah,
You
that's
can move
better.
around wherever you want.
Okay.
Okay.
As you can see, we've been rehearsing for days. Alright, so this is good.
Yeah.
If you can go in the light, that's better. I know. Is it bothering you?
It's a little bit, but I'll do it.
Okay.
Alright, so good night all. As George mentioned, I'm Jamaican, and I did a degree in applied linguistics at University of Waterloo in Mona, and I actually came to Canada in 2008 as a visiting professor at York University. I was teaching courses on Jamaican language and culture, but I'm now currently at the University of Waterloo. So every morning I get up at 5:30 a.m. and make a 1 hour drive down to Waterloo to teach my 8:30 a.m. class. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday I teach in the Department of English Language and Literature. And I teach courses on academic writing and technical writing. So one thing that I didn't include in my introduction when I sent it to George originally was that I'm a confirmed Anglican, and I was a Christian, at least a dedicated Christian, for 10 solid years, if I remember correctly, between the time when I started to attend church, started to attend the confirmation classes, got baptized, got confirmed, then kind of slipped away, deconverted. I now describe myself as a full-blown atheist, which is very unusual for a Caribbean person. If you know anything about the Caribbean, you know that it's particularly high in terms of religiosity, right? The dominant religion, certainly for the English-speaking Caribbean countries, and to an extent the Spanish and French-speaking ones as well, is Christianity. Catholicism in particular. That where Jamaica is concerned, it's Anglicanism, but Catholicism is also a big religion there as well. And that, of course, is a part of the Caribbean's colonial legacy. But what I want to talk about tonight is something very different. How a secular kind of non-belief culture has started to emerge in the Caribbean region, and how persons like myself and others have more or less kind of de facto taken up leadership roles in this particular movement, which has emerged within the last 6 to 8 to 10 years, I would say, and has gained quite a bit of steam and notoriety in certain Caribbean territories. So before I get right into a kind of timeline reflection of my life as a Christian, coming to the present where there's a distinct Caribbean secular identity, I'd like to show you a clip of my video series that I post on YouTube. It's called Skeptically Speaking. And what I do is I just talk to believers from all shades of belief, Christians, I've interviewed voodoo priestess, and I've interviewed persons who are spiritualists, and so on and so forth. So the full spectrum of believer. What I do, I just talk to these persons, and I stream it live via YouTube. And the bulk of my audience tends to be Jamaican and by extension Caribbean nationals, either in the Caribbean or who are in the diaspora. And they would watch live on YouTube and ask questions, both of myself and the guest. So I'm just going to play to show you a short clip of an interview I did with a very staunch Catholic woman who was convinced that there was a gay agenda, an LGBT agenda afoot in Jamaica. This is something which is often said in the Caribbean, the fact that some kind of gay agenda exists and persons who are a part of the gay movement, whether gay themselves or sympathizers, apparently like myself, are enabling this movement. So in this clip, I'm asking her about the gay agenda.
Was removed, in 73, right? It was suddenly it was considered more of a disorder, and so it's really.
I suspect that happened because it was considered a disorder in the first place. I'm just letting you know.
It's a very easy law. It can't hold a man. It can't hold a person. You know what I mean?
Well, give me a second. But that was not the Catholic stance during the
What I know, that's a different show.
Well, I don't try to say that shit.
Different show.
It's a different show.
Different show.
Alright, so do you know anybody that's gay?
Right now?
Yes. You have a gay friend?
I used to work with someone who I considered a friend.
Okay, that was gay.
Yeah, but you no longer like.
Okay, alright. So right now you don't have any
I
gay
have to
friends.
think hard about other. I'm sure I do,
No, but you see, but that's the thing. No, if you have to think hard, it's the fact that that's it.
Off the top of my head.
So I'm asking about friends specifically. So here's what I'm going to ask.
That person is no longer with me. But
Do you have a best friend right now?
not really. You can't get
Do you have a friend that's a good friend?
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So now imagine that this friend is gay.
Okay.
Right. So this friend is not gay, right? And this friend lives in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And this friend is a man.
Okay.
So right now, so I've been a hypothetical situation now. So you have a good friend that is gay, a man who lives in Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And you agreed earlier that this gay man, who is a good friend, should be free from violence,
Yes.
should have access to education, should be able to work
Yes.
and support himself
Yes.
and buy a house,
Yes.
right? And buy groceries.
Yes.
Cool. Do you think that this good friend of yours has an agenda?
Maybe not necessarily.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. So, then, do you think that other gay persons have an agenda?
Well, there seems to be a move to promote changes in the laws and so on and so forth. It seems a little bit more cohesive and organized than that. There seems to have been over the years a subtle, how should I say this, eroding of our normal natural inclinations or views and tendencies by, that's the agenda.
Okay, so what was happening in this clip, essentially, if you were able to hear everything clearly, I asked Angelique, that's her name, about a hypothetical gay person who was a very good friend. And she easily agreed that this gay person should have access to education, employment, housing, and the means to support himself. And then I asked her, do you think this hypothetical gay person, who is a good friend of yours, has an agenda? And as you can see, she was stuck. Right? It was very hard for her to imagine a good friend who is a gay person with an agenda. And as soon as I asked her, well, do you think other gay persons have an agenda? She could easily answer, right? So what she kind of did was to internalize this idea of a friend who is a gay person. And clearly, that person has no agenda. But the minute I asked her if other gay persons who are not her friend, who are unknown to her, have an agenda, then she presents this conspiracy theory, really and truly. And right after that section, she goes on to say that the way in which homosexuality was removed from the psychological studies as a mental disorder was as a result of the gay agenda, the gay lobby, and the gay conspiracies trying to overturn what we know as medically and psychologically right. But the minute you tell her that this gay person is her friend, this person apparently has no agenda. And these are some of the interviews that I do on my show, Skeptically Speaking. And this particular interview generated quite a number of views and got some really interesting comments. So let's go all the way back to the start. So in 1981, this is my introduction to the world. I was born into the Baptist tradition. My grandparents on my mother's side, and pretty much my entire side of my mother's family were Baptists in Jamaica. So even though I guess you could call it the national church, so to speak, of Jamaica is the Anglican church because of our colonial past, the Baptist church and other, what do you call these churches?
Evangelical.
Protestant, right? Protestant churches, right? Have quite a large section of the population in Jamaica for a number of various reasons. Where the Baptist church is concerned, the Baptist church played an integral role in resettling ex-slaves after slavery ended in Jamaica. So in and around the time of about 1863, like about 30 years, about 3 decades after slavery ended in the British Caribbean, the Baptists helped to resettle slaves in what were then called free villages. And as a part of resettling them in free villages and ensuring that their livelihood and dignity could be maintained as landowners, the obvious extension of that was that these persons ostensibly became members of the Baptist church. And their children and their children's children became members of the Baptist church as well. And I suspect this is where my family was concerned. So I grew up more or less in a kind of Baptist tradition, and I would accompany my mother on occasion to church. Never my father, he was never into religion, which is another situation in the Caribbean. There's this big gender divide. The wives and children are all at church, and the husbands and boyfriends are at home watching cricket. So that was pretty much what happened in my household as well. My brother and I were more or less forced to attend it's a church called the Boulevard Baptist Church, a very big Baptist church in the island's capital of Kingston. And I remember many a Sunday we would sit through what seemed to me a very boring service while the preacher went on and on and on about righteous living, hell and damnation, and so on and so forth. Right? And it's not the projector, it's not coming up?
No, I don't know what the...
There's just no S. Well, could you just click it on the thing? On the projector itself?
Well...
Is there a problem there? Alright, so I'll just allow to start that up again. Okay, so it should be coming up. Alright, so while the projector hopefully pops up, the thing that I was going to mention next was that there's this idea that Jamaica is a Christian country. And of course, this is because of our colonial legacy. But Jamaica is also one of those places of very stark contradictions. In addition to in addition to consistently being ranked in the top 10 most violent countries that aren't a part of the war, Jamaica is also ranked consistently in the top 10 most happiest places to live. Right? So it's one of those places of very stark contradictions. The vast majority of the people in Jamaica, I'd say upward of 90%, speak a language which has no official recognition in the island. So I both speak in Jamaican Creole and subsequently learned English, standard English, when I went to school. And this is the case for the vast majority of Jamaican persons. But the language, the vernacular language of the population, is not given any kind of official recognition in the island. And of course, this is the case for a lot of Caribbean territories. The other kind of distinction, or dichotomy, which exists in Jamaica, is this distinction between the traditional high church and low church. And the high churches would be the Catholic, the Anglican, Presbyterian, Moravian, Lutheran, and so on. Churches which traditionally have the almost Victorian architecture and stained glass and priests and so on with incense and blah blah blah. The traditional low church are Christian splinter churches mixed with African influences. So the church that we're looking at here is the Kingston Parish Church, traditional high church. And this here is a picture of what is called a revivalist church in Jamaica. These are Christians, actually, but they use a lot of African spiritualist traditions in their ceremonies as well. Churches like these are seen as cults, as outcasts, and of course, of Satan. Right? And I, of course, grew up in a community where there were persons who were from the traditional high church, as well as a next door neighbor who was a revivalist. And I would be exposed to that kind of thing. And I would wonder, why is it that there's such a big difference in between what happens in the traditional high church and what takes place in what is called a low church? The other association with these kinds of churches is voodoo, right? So voodoo, which is practiced in Haiti, has a counterpart in a number of other Caribbean territories as well. In Jamaica, there's what is called Obia. And then in Cuba, there's what is called Santeria. And in parts of South America, there's what is called Candomblé. But they're all coming from the same place. These are all part of West African, Orisha/Yoruba spiritual traditions. And where Jamaica is concerned, Obia is actually illegal to this day. It's still written on the books as an illegal practice. How that came about is obviously because of the demonization which occurred because of Christian churches who were initially settled on the island saw to it that anything which resembled African spiritual traditions should either be outlawed or pushed to the margin. And this is the kind of context which exists in Jamaica. Jamaica, I think it was written somewhere, I'm not sure if it was a Guinness World Book of Record, the most churches per square mile in Jamaica. Of course, the running joke in Jamaica is that a lot of these churches occupy the ground floor of a rum bar. So you'd have the church on the ground floor and a bar right on top, where you can go right up the church to do your betting and drinking and so on. So growing up in Jamaica, there wasn't really any option other than to be part of the Christian culture and to really attend church. It was kind of the rent you had to pay as a consequence of living with parents. So I didn't have much choice. And I wasn't too resistant at the time either. Certainly it was a drag getting up very early on a Sunday morning. And of course, I'm not sure if you know about the Baptist services. These are all day, really and truly. So it feels like all day. You get there at 8 a.m. and you come back in time for dinner at 4. Right? So you spend quite a portion of time at church on a Sunday. So, high school years, and this is the time I started to ask myself, what is going to happen to my soul? There is, in Jamaica, so just as how you have the traditional churches, you have what is called traditional high schools. And it's not too hard to make a connection. Traditional high schools were started by traditional churches, right? Traditional high class churches. What would happen is that very early in the plantation society of Jamaica, the British planters would simply send their children back to England to be educated. As time went on and the British planters started to settle in the island, it seemed more efficient and maybe prudent to simply carry the schoolmasters from England to the Caribbean and have the children educated in and around the great house or the plantation house. So what happened was that you had a lot of these traditional schools, traditional grammar schools in England, that eventually came to Jamaica in some shape or form. So the high schools in Jamaica are, well, especially the traditional high schools, which were started either by the Baptist Church, the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, or the Lutheran Presbyterian Church. Some of these schools are 100, 150, 250, 300 years old. So a lot of these schools, a lot of these traditional high schools were established when the island was still very much a colony and likely still in a slave economy as well. So this is when I started to ask myself, I go to heaven, and of course you encounter what I would call, I guess, serious Christians in high school. We had an organization called the Inter-Schools Christian Fellowship, and it was a network of Jamaican schools. It might be a school that had an Anglican background, a Catholic background, a Baptist background, but we were all Christians. So there was a kind of Christian network which existed right through the length and breadth of the island. And I, of course, was one of those ISCF members, right? I was swept up into this organization, partly out of guilt, but also because it was good to see persons who were my age, who were from my socioeconomic background, and who looked exactly like me, who were so convinced that heaven is real and there is actually a path to get to heaven. So I was swept up by that group, more or less. And I don't know when I call it Jesus freaks, but I was one of those persons back in the day. I would attend meetings, I would lead Bible study, and I would be very much engrossed in the activities of the Inter-Schools Christian Fellowship. But it was during high school that I actually had my first act of defiance. So in Jamaican high schools, as a part of the school day, you have mandatory corporate devotions. So corporate devotions are always Christian. So if you are a Muslim child or a Hindu child or a Rastafarian child who attended school in Jamaica, certainly back in the days when I was at school, 1992 to 1999, I was in high school at the time, you would have to attend corporate Christian worship. And the interesting thing is that our Constitution makes it expressly clear that no person should be forced to be a part of any kind of religious gathering or religious observance against their will. It does have a caveat. Where children are concerned, and the parents will have to give express consent to have their children excused from devotions. Of course, most parents aren't aware of this, and as a matter of fact, it would be not in your child's best interest to excuse them from devotions, because now you're just seen as an outsider, as a person who doesn't want to share in the glory and the goodness of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Right? And the last thing that we want to do is to be on the outside of devotions while everyone is caught up, singing and happy and enjoying what is going on in devotion. So when I was in grade 12, I asked my supervisor, why is it that I have to attend devotions? It says here in the Jamaican Constitution that I should not be forced to attend any kind of religious observance against my will. I think no, it is against my will. I would not like to attend today and henceforth. And he simply said, well, it's the school rules. So where the schools are concerned, apparently there's this idea that school rules, where attendance and devotions is concerned, is, oh, I should stop right now?
Okay, since you stopped.
Okay, good. All right, so we can start again.